Alright lads, how's it going? Today we're going to be talking about Vegapunk, CP0, Franky, Robin, everyone in this, everyone to do with One Piece right now. Because I have no time, I actually have no time this week to make One Piece videos. So I'm just going to make this big video for the week to talk about everything I want to talk about. It'll probably be a mishmash, probably a bit unorthodox, but whatever. That's how I roll right now. Also, I didn't bring it up before, but I got the Wano Ace statue and the Wano Sabo statue. The Sabo statue's fucking sword wouldn't attach, so I had to do it some weird ass way. Well, let me rephrase that. My dexterity's pretty shit, so I got someone else to do it because putting together statues is surprisingly hard when your fingers don't exactly do what you want them to do in the most precise way possible. But you know what? We don't talk about that. Anyway. This chapter, in general, the last few chapters have been crazy, but this chapter makes me worry a little bit. And let me explain why, right? Because now we're gonna see this, right? We got Rob Lucci pulling up with Kaku and Stussy, which is great and everything, yeah. But I'm really worried here, right? Because I can't really visualize many fights here, right? Zoro might fight Kaku, that makes sense, because they fought before. Lucci fighting Luffy, yeah, that'd be grand, but I kind of want someone else to fight him, you know what I mean? But I don't know what else they would do. I still want Vegapunk 2, or Lilith, to, like, defect and, like, sort of use the giant robot to fight, and then Franky has to fight it. And he's, like, running up the leg, and he's running up the arm, and he's, you know, in general Franky and stuff, and that should be really cool. And he uses that opportunity to basically study the robot and then make a General Franky giant on his own. Imagine if he's making it while he's fighting. That shit would be so cool, man. Like, these fights are good. I think Robin has to fight Stussy. I know you could argue that, you know, Nami should fight Stussy, but I feel like Robin fighting Stussy would make more sense just because of the arc Stussy was involved in and how she's an underworld boss sort of thing, you know what I mean? So it makes sense to me there. But yeah, no, I don't know. Because I still think Smoker's going to show up at some point in this arc, and that's who Luffy's going to fight. So we could see Zoro fight Lucci maybe, and then Sanji fights Kaku, or maybe Usopp fights Kaku, something like that. You know, we might see that happen. I don't think all the Straw Hats are going to get fights. In fact, I don't really see Sanji getting a fight, if I'm going to be honest. He's probably going to be more focused on Vegapunk might talk to him about Judge, and he might be a bit more understanding about Mads, and he might talk about Sora. Because I know the whole thing about, you know, Vegapunk 2 being modeled after Sora is a big theory going around. I think it'd be great because we could have a bit of conflict between Vegapunk and the Straw Hats even before Lilith goes evil. And I think it might be cool if, let's say, Franky is fighting Lilith and maybe Sanji's like, no, he's like, it's the peak of his arc because he's conflicted, you know what I mean? He's really conflicted because, yeah, that's not his mom, but it's modeled after his mom, and he doesn't know how to feel because of what happened in the last arc, and all his emotions are out of whack, right? And that's how we finally breach the gap between his two arcs, and he finally becomes who he's going to be in that final arc. I think that'd be fabulous. Absolutely amazing. I'm really excited to see how they handle that and what they do with it, to be honest. Because Sanji's a great character, and, like, the build-up Oda did with what they did early in One Piece post-time skip where he made Sanji a little bit deplorable, you know, a bit terrible. But you saw it build up and it all culminated in Whole Cake Island. Or even started in Zoe to make a really great character arc and to make me fall in love with Sanji again. And then even the stuff in Act 2, which I wasn't really a fan of, right? I didn't like that very much. We all know that, right? Oda somehow turned it into a plot point that I love. Because he turned it into something that progressed Sanji's character. Still don't like the fact that he had to use the bath scenes and shit like that to do that. But you know what? We live and we forget because that's a nitpick in some sense of the word, right? And Oda he always makes me hate Sanji then fall in love with him again. So what can I say? And the jazz music in the anime is hype right now, so hey, I'm not going to say anything bad about that. But I feel like Egghead could be the arc where we finish off his character arc. Both Robin, Franky, and Sanji could have a really good character arc through this story. We could have Franky rebel with the idea that he might not be able to surpass, you know, that knowledge of Vegapunk, might not be able to do the ultimate thing needed to be done, right? because he doesn't have the brain through, and yet he's still going to surpass Vegapunk through as a normal human with no extra bits and bobs. He's like, nah, I don't need that. I'm super Franky. I don't need that stuff, man. All I need is my cola and I'm all good. Super, you know what I mean? That sort of shit, yeah? And I think that would be a good arc for him to kind of take, like, go in the path of Vegapunk, but also sort of separate himself, you know? Living the way he wants to live. You know, maybe focusing particularly on ships, which will lead to Pluton, potentially. But that's something to be said. I do think, especially now, if we're going to talk about the Kuma stuff real quick before we go back to Robin, with Kuma running off, Dragon showing up, boys. It's going to parallel Logtown now. And I actually think CP0 might be paralleling Boogie and Alvida. So they're going to be seeming like the main threat. And Smoker's going to be going after Luffy in the background all the time when he shows up. And then we're going to have a fight between Luffy and Smoker. And something's going to happen and Dragon's going to show up, man. Big man Dragon, and we're gonna find out more about him, right? And I'm excited to find out about Dragon because, as you know, the last chapter had the stuff with O'Hara and the new Dragon design, which, you know what, I don't have a problem with the 33-year-old Dragon, but I'm telling you right now, as I said in the previous chapter review and previous times I've talked about this, I do want Luffy's mother to be alive. I don't think she is, but it would be nice to have Luffy's mother be alive. Because Oda... Right, look. Luffy has to have a badass fucking mother. I'm telling you this. She has to be, like, top in the verse, bro. She was able to convince Dragon to have a kid, right? Before his big revolution. Even during his big revolution started. So you know what I mean? Like, she has to be some extraordinary person. And how are you going to get her to... How are you going to get her to die, right? Like... I don't know how they're going to handle it, to be honest. Like, I'm excited to see. I do think she's from the Marines, as I said before. Because it's like, if she wasn't... That line that Vegapunk said, where you know there's good people in the Marines, Dragon. And then if that's said, and then he ends up, you know, falling in love with someone from the Marines, that would be an interesting way to do it. And maybe his revolution led directly to her execution, because they're like, you had a kid with a revolutionary. And all this stuff happened, I don't know. Or maybe, like, there could be ways to handle it. Maybe she was taken as a slave by a celestial dragon and there was nothing he could do about it. And he was, like, fuming. And then this whole thing is going to lead up to a big fight between, you know, maybe St. Charles. Imagine it's St. Charles versus Dragon at the end of the series, man. And Dragon just completely decimates him. Like, he's, like... fucking wrecking, like punching him. He's like, he doesn't do any mercy like Luffy. He doesn't like give one punch and then leave it. He's just beating him down and beating him down and beating him down because of that shit. You know what I mean? That'd be good to see. Interesting. I want to see Dragon have a bit of emotion. I also want to see what Ivankov's whole thing in this is, right? Because it doesn't seem like the Kamabaka Queendom is dealing with any like discrimination by the government or anything like that. It seems like the government can't get their hands on that kingdom, right? So what motivation would Ivankov have to get involved in this revolution? Because their kingdom is already fine, or you know what I mean? Their kingdom is safe as it is. You know, they don't need to go out and join the revolutionaries because Ivankov is there and Ivankov is sorting it out. There could be they don't go near it because of the revolutionaries, and we'll get a backstory where Ivankov's kingdom, you know, the queendom, was attacked by the government over and over again for their hormone fruit and something like that. And Dragon saved its ass and was like, all right, look, you be the revolutionary with me, and we'll be all good. You know what I mean? And that could be interesting. It also could be interesting if Ivankov is like Crocodile's uncle or something, or parent or somehow. You know what I mean? That'd be funny, wouldn't it? I also think there's a potential that, like, I don't know, I feel like Crocodile could eventually become a revolutionary. I don't know. That just kind of popped into my head, but we're not going to go too far on this. But going back to the Kuma situation, right? If we talk about that for a little bit, what do we think this is? Do we think this is... He got Vegapunk to program into him whenever... Egghead, you know, whenever some government official stepped on Egghead and or whatever, let's say Shaka pressed the button to be like, oh, we're in danger, right? And Kuma comes to protect Vegapunk. Or is this a thing where Bonnie got knocked out by the beams, and it's like Kuma knows and Bonnie's in danger for some reason. They programmed it into him somehow, or something like that. Maybe because she's wearing the egghead equipment. Like the fact that she got knocked out was registered in the punk records, and maybe Kuma has access to the punk records, and so he was like, "Fuck that! I'm not letting Bonnie get beaten up," and he starts running towards Bonnie. I think that would be a very interesting way to do that because she got knocked out in this chapter, so you could deal with it where Kuma's coming to protect Bonnie, and then we get to see the more character side of Kuma. And when he arrives, we finally get that backstory we're looking for. Do you know what I'm saying? I am very excited for this. And I think that's going to lead to the revolutionaries showing up. And it might actually increase the likelihood that this war breaks out before anything else happens. You know what I mean? We're going to have a bit earlier than Dragon expected. Meaning the revolutionaries are going to be in a bit of chaos with the government. The government are going to have the upper hand in this war. And then the pirates, obviously, there's going to be anarchy. And it's going to be a very interesting, chaotic war, which I want to see how Oda manages it. You know what I mean? The Kobe stuff, the law stuff. We're definitely going to Elbath. By the way, our prayers were answered. Our prayers, our daily rituals finally paid off. This is what I'm telling you, man. We're going to Elbath, and it seems like it's going to be an absolutely chunky arc. In fact, I think the war might start on Elbath. You know what I mean? Or maybe even Egghead. We don't know. But I don't know how long Egghead is going to be. There's a break next week, unfortunately. So we won't be able to talk about it next week, which is actually handy for me because I wouldn't have been able to because, you know, exams and that stuff. But, yeah, no, I'm excited to see where this goes, right? The beam sabers are cool, you know, the defect of the bugs and stuff. But I also do think I want to have, like, Usopp get a beam saber or, like, Brook get a beam saber at some point. And actually fight with it, because it's like it's that sort of cool technology shit that I think they would use in an interesting way. I do want to see what's gonna happen with Usopp this arc. Like, it doesn't feel like he's gonna do anything. Like in Wano, he didn't do much, but the thing was he was great support. Do you remember that moment when he saved Tama so Nami could do that lightning attack? Or he was always great support in the ulti and page 1 fight. But that's what he does best. But I just don't see who's going to support this arc, because I don't see Nami doing much, to be honest. I feel like it's going to be focused a lot on Robin this arc, as we can see with the stuff about Saul and things like that. And I feel like things are going to culminate this arc, which is interesting, right? And I don't know, Vegapunk having a bit of a bad side to him where he's willing to sacrifice things just to get scientific advancement is interesting, because it's like we don't want Vegapunk to be a necessarily really good guy, and we see that with him and Dragon. He's like, look, I can't get anything done if I'm with you in the Freedom Fighters. I need to be with the government so I can actually develop stuff and make inventions, and there's still good people in the government that we can convince, right? Which is overall the best decision to make. But the thing about that is, right, is that he's been feeding into the government's development against the revolutionaries, which I think is going to be interesting, right? Because overall, his curiosity may have killed the cat, if you know what I'm saying. And I do feel like Vegapunk will overall not be considered a good guy, because he basically wanted to make a hive mind, which you could essentially say is the internet. If it's made in the internet way of things, where it's like you do it through a device and it's not directly your actual brain, so we can all still have individual thought, and that's okay. But like the way he was describing it, hive mind shit, nah, not my thing. But I do like how Bonnie is pissed off. Like, Bonnie doesn't like that shit, you know what I mean? She just doesn't at all. And Vegapunk can't seem to understand that, which is what I think the difference between Vegapunk and Franky will be. Vegapunk is a mad genius. Franky is a super genius. Do you know what I'm saying? So we gotta, like, that's gonna be the difference here, man. Franky is more empathetic. He's more about the fun of it, right? Less about all this, like, scientific advancement shit. He's just trying to have fun inventing cool shit. I think that's gonna lead to some really interesting developments in the One Piece world using Vegapunk's technology. 100%. And I do wonder if we're gonna get to see the use of these, you know, equipment like the hover boots and stuff, like, in these fights. It'd be interesting to have a sort of zero gravity One Piece fight arc. Do you know what I'm saying? That would be interesting to see happen, right? At the end of the day, something new, something interesting to see. Maybe the use of technology combined with hockey and devil fruits, and how, like, they can't say the confident hockey users in that room cannot seem to break out of the boots with their hockey, which is interesting. We're going to see technology probably be used by the government in order to circumvent this later on, which I'm excited to see. I don't know. The war to me is probably going to start off at Elbath. I feel like it's all going to culminate at Elbath, the big war, right? I don't know. I was hoping for a chill arc with Elbath with a Davy back fight with the Shanks crew, but it doesn't look like that's happening. It looks like the big war is going to start on Elbath. But also, if we come back a little bit, like pull back for a bit, what is Zoro gonna end up doing this arc, bro? Like, are we gonna get answers to this like devil thing? The devil just showing up, the Soul Reaper just showing up to take his soul. Like, we haven't got anything said about it, which is interesting. And I don't know if this is gonna be dealt with in Elbath or if it's gonna wait until, or if we're gonna get it in this arc. But I really want to know, and the more I sit on it, the more I want to know. Do you know what I mean? Like, what does this mean for Zoro? What abilities does he have now, bro? How is it going to relate to Devil Fruits? You know what I mean? And interestingly, Momo got brought up in this chapter as well. He talked about how Momo's a failure because he's pink, which is quite funny. Obviously, everyone kind of thought that was how it's going to go. But I also think it's going to be interesting because we might see so we do probably know he can synthesize Devil Fruits. But it's how he goes about it is the interesting question. How is he going to synthesize certain people's Devil Fruits? Are we going to see like synthesized version of Robin's fruit, or synthesized version of like Sanji's abilities? Like, imagine if they turn Sanji's abilities into like fruits, because they probably can, because Mads and all that were similar forms of research. So you could. There's a lot of interesting ways we might get. The Seraphim are going to be really cool, I think. But I'm worried about one thing, right? Because in the last chapter, I didn't talk about this because I only thought about this afterwards. They were talking about how Seraphim are developed and how they are basically, right? They can grow into stronger versions of themselves. I don't want Mihawk to lose to his Seraphim self, and then Zoro has to become the strongest swordsman by beating the Seraphim Mihawk. I want Zoro to beat the actual Mihawk, alright? I don't want any of this Seraphim bullshit. We can have him beat the Seraphim before he beats Mihawk. That's entirely fine. That doesn't bother me at all. But you have to show that the Seraphims are weaker than their original counterparts, at least to a degree. So that's okay. But it's I do like the Seraphim. I like the designs. My whole idea about the actual Kuma's consciousness being in that failed Seraphim is probably not true. He's probably just where he was there because of this whole thing where he's coming to save Bonnie, which is what I believe now, which I think is going to lead to some interesting stuff. And we'll probably see Luffy and Dragon interact in this arc, which is what I'm really, really excited for, to see how Dragon feels about Luffy on a general scale. Does he have the same feeling about Luffy that Luffy has about Dragon? He's like, oh, who's my dad? I don't really care. Alright, he's a cool dude. Cool. As long as he doesn't hurt my friends, we're G. You know what I mean? And I kind of like that because it's a reasonable way to put a degree of separation between the two. And how, as we said, you know, Luffy was like, we just got lost. And he's like, oh, I thought you were being smart. But no, he's just having a crack. And I love that about it because Vegapunk's trying to be all analytical and all scientific. And Luffy's just like, I'm just chilling, bro. But one other thing, alright? Now, hear me out. This is going to be like, this is power scaler mode entering here. So we got the robot there, the giant robot fella, climbed the red line 200 years ago. Okay, and tried to attack Mary Joa. Forget about the history, all that, right? Forget about the fact why it stopped, why did it run out of fuel, what was it fueled by. Fisher Tiger climbed that years later. Without a robot, presumably. Completely bare hands, alright? If this dude Fisher Tiger is not a Conqueror's user, I don't know what is. Bro can do what a giant robot, they had to develop a giant robot to do. Okay? Bro has to be a Conqueror's user, man. I don't care what anyone says. That's why they had him die due to an illness or something. Or what was it? Why did he die again? I can't remember the full things of the flashback. The only thing I can remember is the speech about not wanting to have human blood in him because of their treatment of fishmen. But I can't remember what the illness was Did he take a blow from Kizaru and then he was like he needed blood, or was there an illness he acquired? I can't remember exactly, or was he protecting Koala? I can't 100% remember, unfortunately. But I still think he has conquerors, man. He has to. The dude climbed the red line in a way that it took a robot to do 200 years ago. Man has to have conquerors. I'm sorry, man. He has to be like the strongest fisherman out there right now. Or like dead or alive, bro. He has to be like, come on. Surely that's his conquerors hockey fee. You know what I'm saying? He at least has Rio. That's what I'm saying, man. At the bare minimum, he has Rio. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know. There's some interesting questions this chapter brought up. What do we think about this robot? You know, how is it going to be dealt with? They're scientists on Marijoa, which is an interesting question, right? They're scientists on Marijoa. You'd think they'd hate that shit, right? Because they're like, nah, we don't want any development. But they have scientists directly on Marijoa. They wanted to get rid of that robot, and they didn't. They brought it to Egghead instead to hide it, which makes sense. But also, the world government just seem more and more stupid as the chapters go on. They don't want scientific advancement, but yet they have scientists on Marijoa itself, right? And they know about the history of the world, but yet they still don't get rid of the books. Yeah? And they don't hunt down actual threats. They give Robin a terrible bounty. You know, not a decently high bounty for her age or for her knowledge, right? And they don't deal with these characters who would have more of a presence and would be stronger and could actually cause them problems. They wait till the last minute. Like, how did they not know about the Nika fruit? Come on. I know the gum fruit's probably going to show up out there and they're going to be like, well, we just thought it was the gum fruit, and they didn't realize it was the Nika fruit. But like, seriously, man, what are the government doing? Like, what are they up to? Seriously, like, what's going on? And how is... Actually, we didn't talk about this because they haven't shown up in a few arcs or in a few chapters. But what are Cross Guild up to now? Like, how are Cross Guild going to play into this? I feel like they're going to be on Elbaf, but do we think they're going to show up here, right? Because maybe the news of Vegapunk getting attacked by Cypher Pole Zero might show up, or Straw, or something, right? Something interesting. And we do know the fact that Stussie's here. Crocodile is also an underground man. He's an underground. He's got that underground money. You know what I mean? He's on the up and up in the underground. So he's obviously gonna have some contacts. So are we gonna see the Cross Guild show up here? I would love to see that though. See how they handle it, what they end up doing, how it goes. But I really don't know. I really don't know what they could do here, how they could handle it. But I'd love to see it though. I would love to see some Crocodile and Mihawk show up and Boogie show up, and to have it all culminate. But I feel like that's an Elbat thing. We'll talk about Elbat some other day. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just happy we got Elbat, lads, and I'm happy the Marines are so stupid because I can flame their dumbass. Oh no, we're only gonna kill him now that he has hockey. Man got advanced Conqueror's hockey, and then they were like, alright, let's kill Luffy now, bro. Didn't think to do it before then, bro, before he left the New World. Surely after Marineford, they should have been like, alright, manhunt time. We're getting Luffy, and we're getting him now, bro. Like, all our forces are gonna take out everyone, right? And surely anyone with a D, right? If you were that worried about it, let's just go on a rant about the Marines for a second. If you were that worried about the D clan, you would kill out anyone with a D, right? Anyone with a D you ever found, you would send like an admiral out to get rid of them immediately. Even at 30 million, gone. We're not letting the D clan do anything right now. That's what I'm saying. What do the government be at? What do the world government be at? And that's honestly my big question here. Out of everything in this chapter, what does the world government be at, bro?